Good evening, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to the January meeting of CB2's Transportation and Public Safety Committee. We'll do the introductions in a minute. As you know, the way we do this is that which is slightly different than other committees, is that there's an open session for public comment on the adopted agenda, which is only on the agenda items that are listed on the agenda. It's a 2-minute period where any of the public could comment. Later on, we have a community forum where a community can bring up any concern. Again, it's a 2 to 3 minute limitation on how the length or the time, depending on how many people. I sometimes enforce it, sometimes I allow people to go up over. During the presentations, when we have presentations, our policy has been also to allow the public to ask questions and make comments. Again, we limit that to 2 minutes as well. We try to keep this going. The committee and they're both public committee members and committee members who are board members. Obviously, they get more time and they get precedent to ask during those periods as well. And obviously, if the board members or the committee members have a concern, that should come up in where it's other committee business as well. So on that note, since I see we've gotten almost most of the committee members here, John, why don't you call the roll call and people can identify themselves.
Sure. Committee members unmute so we can go through the roll very quickly, but as soon as you say respond, then go into mute. Sid Meier, Chair.
You heard from me already.
Esther Blount, Vice Chair. Esther, I know you're here. I saw you. No, did maybe she drop off already? Okay. John Quinn, Secretary here. Ernest Augustus. Sandy Barbosa. Juliet Cullen Chung.
Here.
John Dew. Shogel.
Here.
Oh, good. Hi, Chair.
Kate Gilman.
Here.
Brian Howell.
Here.
Patrick Kalaki.
Here.
Nicole Murray.
Present.
Jonathan Rogers.
Here.
Cyril Scala.
Here.
Thank you. We have a quorum.
So then the next thing is the adoption of this agenda. Can I have a motion to adopt the agenda?
Motion.
Okay, Kate Gilman, seconded by John Quint. All in favor? Any opposition? Hearing none, it's adopted. Has everyone had a chance to review the last minutes, which were in October, because we've had various and sundry non-meetings. If you have any comments, please pass them along to John. I've read them, and as far as I'm concerned, it's okay. The next thing is Nicole to discuss the district level crash and the traffic violence statistics. I will note that there was a traffic fatality, bike violence fatality on 9th Street and 2nd Avenue, on 9th Street and 3rd Avenue, I think, where a biker was unfortunately killed. And 9th Street is the same street that we've had previous traffic fatalities, although that was further up the street. So Nicole.
Okay, can you see my screen? Do I need to zoom in?
Yeah, it's showing now.
Do I need to zoom?
It's okay with me.
Is that good?
Yeah, it seems okay.
Okay, so I added a little intro tab for new folks. So what is this? This is a multi-tab spreadsheet with counts and visualizations of crashes with injuries in the community board district. The data comes from New York City Police Department records, which are fed into New York City's open data portal. The data set is called motor vehicle collisions. And it's also fed into a tool called Crash Mapper, where it can be easily filtered and visualized on a map. So the data is reliant on NYPD reports. They are required to be reported if there is a fatality or injury, or if there's at least $1,000 worth of damage, but there are certainly some that are not reported. And some reports may have incomplete or ambiguous geographical data. So example, a crash that happened on Atlantic Avenue, it may be reported for CB8, even though it's like kind of right between, and that actually happened last month. So it is updated monthly before these monthly meetings, starting with the prior month. So this is January, I will be going over December, and then the year starting in December. So here's the map for this month. We actually have sort of a little bit, looks like Flatbush is clearing up a little bit, but we can see that, you know, typically again, they're along the more high-speed corridors, Atlantic, Flatbush, along the BQE and so on. We had 61 total crashes with injuries. Again, this is not all crashes in this month. And I want to go ahead and go over the 10-year chart since we're at the end of the year. So this starts from 2013 and goes to 2022. The blue bars are all crashes with injuries, and the red line at the top is aggregate every injury, no matter if you're a motorist, and fatality, no matter if you're a motorist, pedestrian, cyclist, and so on. We have this line here. 2020 dropped. We are slowly ticking back up to normal, unfortunately. We had that huge drop in 2020 because of COVID with very few people on the road. You can see this orange line here is motorist injuries. Those really dropped in 2020 because those lead the injuries. Cyclists and pedestrians are staying pretty constant, low, but you know, they're not really getting better or worse. But we're kind of ticking back up. So this is all of last year. We had 694 total crashes with injuries and 854 people injured or killed in our community board district alone. So for this year in December, we had 62 total injuries and crashes. Actually, so this is where something came up. So we had if you saw in the news, this driver coming out of McDonald's drove over the barriers over LARR, crashed into the train station, the train yard there, and the driver was killed, and his passenger is in the hospital. I'm not sure of her condition, but it was critical when she was taken to the hospital. So this was reported for Community Board 8, but it was like right, you know, it came from our community board, went into the Community Board 8. Where does that count? It's ambiguous, but I went ahead and I wanted to include it in our records because Atlantic Avenue is part of our community, and this is where it happened. So this happened at the end of the month in December. Unfortunately, this was our fatality. We had 78 total injuries. So we can see during the year, we had gone up in summer, we're sort of flattening out. You know, things aren't really looking any better since the beginning of the year, it's looking quite worse. And it's primarily being driven by motorist injuries and crashes. We're seeing a little bit of uptick. The orange line is cyclists, but you know, it's also kind of going down. It's just not really getting better or worse for these guys, but for motorists, we're seeing things go up. And here's 10 years. Again. That's it. Any questions?
And Nicole, I'm just said next month we have a very heavy schedule, so I'm going to use my chair's position, and that we're going to skip the report next month if you don't mind, unless something really badly goes up. So we will try to. Because we've got at least 4 presentations coming next month. So, but again, I'll open it up for questions or comments. If anyone has a question or comment, will they note it in the chart? Because I can't see everybody or raise their hand.
There's one, Jonathan.
Jonathan, you have a question? Please go right ahead.
Yeah, I have a question. So
I was wondering in these reports, like if we know the cause of the accident at all. And one of my questions is also, if there are updates to traffic patterns, if we know kind of like as of a certain change, is that something that's available to us?
Yeah.
For example, if they change something that was specific to a road or a stoplight, would we be able to see the sort of data from that point onwards?
Yes, if I were given a date to compare when a change was made, I could choose a time, or anybody could choose a time frame to compare different dates along the same window. So that's perfectly possible here. This is just general. So yes, in terms of the cause, so that the cause is indicated in the individual crashes. So if you were to go to, I think I'm not sharing my screen anymore, but if you were to go to Crash Mapper, you can see contributing factors. And again, this relies on the accuracy of the NYPD's reporting. So for this month, most were unspecified. So it wasn't even noted what the cause of the crash was. But then we had 13 of driver inattention, 12 following too closely, 7 failure to yield. If you wanted to get specific, you'd have to go to the data itself and look at like individual tickets and try to come up with like who's doing what. But some of that data is logged, some isn't, but it's essentially, it seems to be that it's the same sort of going too fast, not paying attention. It appears to be the leading cause of most of these crashes.
But there's one thing I want to note about that. In bicycle crashes, it's typical that the police blame the bicyclist. And it's notoriously true that that information isn't accurate, that it later on, whenever there's a fatality, there's a investigation done by the highway division. Well, and it's very difficult to get that report, and that report doesn't come in for a number of months. But those reports tend to be more accurate about what caused the death, like the one that Nicole showed, which I thought that person came out of the McDonald's on.
Yes, that's so far. I haven't seen any updates. The NYPD immediately said medical episode, but that it's just their assessment when they first arrived. I haven't seen any other updates. So
getting that final report is worse than pulling teeth, frankly. So I just take those with a grain of salt. We do what we can. Sometimes when the press picks up on it, they ultimately are better at getting the report. The city requires us to file a Freedom of Information request in order to get the final report. So it does take a while. Just to note, we are concerned about these. We do monitor trends. We've commented to the Department of Transportation. We raised the issue with the Department of Transportation about the traffic violence that occurred on the BQE before they made it into 2 lanes. I am told that the number of traffic accidents on that section of the highway has gone down, but I haven't seen the actual statistics yet.
Yeah, so that's an example where I used the tool to isolate that road, and they did go down year over year. However, overall, citywide, they went down. So it's kind of hard to say what was the cause, but you can isolate some of these roads and see what's happening.
Got it. Okay, thanks.
Any other questions? Hearing none.
Wait. I have a question. Oh,
yes.
I can't get my hand up.
Okay, well, go ahead. You don't have to hand up that. Now that we know you have a question, go ahead and ask a question.
Okay, so there's more congestion down below since on the local streets and particularly Atlantic Avenue with the overweight trucks and traffic coming because of the two-lane conversion on the BQE. What is that called? Cantilever. Anyway, there are a lot of conflicts at Hickson Atlantic, turning to get on the ramp or turning to go from Hicks across Atlantic to the ramp and then, or to Hicks Street northbound in Brooklyn Heights. Are there more accidents because there's more congestion, or is the congestion just slowing things down? I mean, what's going on? Do we know? I mean, I don't know. You're just looking at statistics. So maybe
yeah, I mean, you can
map.
We can map that intersection and kind of see the trends. I just did one period year over year where compared to when before the lanes were reduced, that particular intersection, the crashes have gone much lower. But again, citywide, they also went lower for that same period. So it's hard to say like what was the primary contributing factor there. That's certainly something I would like to dig into if I could. You said Hicks, that thing, Hicks in Atlantic, getting onto the BQE.
Yeah, Hicks in Atlantic. That's where the it's become with the truck because of the traffic backing up further down, further south on the BQE with cars and stuff from getting off, and they're turning to get back on there as well. But that's traditionally been that has been a difficult corner. They've adjusted the lights. The lights have been changed. It is one of the places that when they have one of the lanes closed, it's one of the spots where they're supposed to have a traffic agent or somebody else directing traffic.
Yeah, they need to have more enforcement, especially at peak hours, but I saw it not at peak time, and everybody was trying to figure out who could go, who had to wait. And it was backed up for a whole block from Hicks to, what is that, Henry? Yeah, the whole thing block.
Interestingly, go ahead.
Oh, and the other thing, I had, DOT's not coming tonight, but my question was about that area, and they're, according to DOT, they're saying this is not safe or sustainable as local streets including Atlantic Avenue, are not designed to safely manage this volume of vehicles, especially overweight trucks. So that's what DOT is saying about that situation.
Yes, and they've also said that the traffic accidents are down for the period of time that they made it 2 lanes. So we'll have to see what happens. Hopefully, when they come next month, we'll have a further discussion of this.
Yeah, just quickly, it looks like for the year 2020, for the full year, that particular stretch from Henry up to about Hicks, even though that crashes were very low overall in the city, there were 34 or 5 there. But this year there were 28. So it has gone down despite citywide patterns for the year 2020. So again, I'm not sure really what's going on. I couldn't tell you why, but compared to a year where citywide crashes were quite low, they're even lower.
And they have made adjustments to the lights. And there are, at least supposedly when one of the lanes are closed, they're supposed to have a traffic enforcement agent doing direction of traffic. Whether it actually happens or not, I don't know. Okay, thank you, Sandy. John,
Hi, good afternoon, Community Board 2. Sid, I just wanted to pick up on Sandy's point. When there's a discussion of reduction of lanes, ergo reduced traffic on the cantilever, it is not necessarily indicative of reduced traffic overall. So where those additional trucks that are no longer traveling on the cantilever but still have to get to that destination, what routes are those trucks directed to go that avoids downtown Brooklyn? Do we have any sense of where all of that additional cantilever traffic has gone?
Yes, the Department of Transportation has a traffic plan that's part of the BQE, and that they monitor the traffic patterns. They have said, all right, and I will report this later, they have said that the traffic is down. And what happens is, and this is typical of any time that they put in a new traffic pattern at the beginning, it takes a while for the public, and public means trucks, cars, whatever, to adjust. After an adjustment period, they adjust the traffic. and they do have specific traffic direction that they have given buses and cars, etc., when they're making the changes. And I will call you. We sent around their responses. We sent around the specific that they had about the traffic, their traffic plan. All right. And as you know, because I've reported on it, they have in fact modified a number of times what they've done. They've changed the traffic pattern, and they continue to do so. And I encourage you, when they come back to have this discussion, to continue the discussion with them.
Thank you for that, Sid. And I guess you're going to talk about this later on, but we need to do a formal request.
Later on, John. Later on is later on. Thank you. Nicole, anything further? Anyone else have questions? Thank you. Next on the agenda is the open session for public comment on the adopted agenda. The adopted agenda at this time just has the presentation and Q&A from the Bridges 4 people in Trinity Park. Is there anybody who would like to make a comment? A comment is not back and forth questioning. A comment is comment on that issue. Anyone raising their hand or waving, or if
No
none,
hands at this time.
who does?
No hands, Mr. Meyer.
Okay. Then welcome Diane, Arunia, and Betty. All right, please introduce yourself. And when you're ready, share your screen and take it away. And I'll go on mute.
Hi, am I unmuted? Yes. Hi, my name is Diane Martins. I'm a Burham Hill resident, and I'm joined this evening by Betty Rexroad and Aruni Ranawira. We're volunteers with the Bridges for People campaign. It's a transportation alternatives initiative. We're here to share our ideas for making street conditions around Trinity Park safer. Last February, nearly a year ago, we organized a ride with elected officials and members of the community to highlight opportunities to improve safety conditions on the approaches from Schermerhorn Street to the entrance of the Manhattan Bridge. Present were Borough President Antonio Reynoso, Council Member Crystal Hudson, Council Member Lincoln Ressler, and Assemblywoman Joanne Simon. All 5 electeds agreed to sign on to a letter that we sent the Department of Transportation asking for safer conditions to the approaches from Schermerhorn to Manhattan Bridge, which included efforts towards making Trinity Park safer and more accessible. This past July, we organized a cleanup in the park in partnership with the Parks Department. We had dozens of volunteers in attendance, as well as Councilmember Ressler. There's actually a photo of the cleanup included later in our presentation. Last month, we presented to Community Board 2's Parks Department, and they recommended that we present to you, the Transportation and Public Safety Committee, this evening. So we're here. Thank you so much for letting us present at this meeting. And with that, I'm going to hand it off to Aruni.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Diane, for the introduction. So just getting straight into it, why are we here talking about Trinity Park? As Diane mentioned before, we have presented this to the Parks Committee. We are here today to present to the Transportation and Public Safety Committee because Trinity Park is at a key transportation corridor. It sits at the hub of the Manhattan Bridge approach, which is a critical bike, pedestrian, and vehicular artery connecting Brooklyn and Manhattan. However, while this park is at a transportation corridor, illegal parking and cutting through the park creates dangerous access points that makes it incredibly dangerous for pedestrians, cyclists, and drivers, as well as unpredictable roadway conditions surrounding the park. This park is located in an incredibly diverse community. It is one of the largest parks in CB2. It is 6 full acres when you look at the footprint of the park as it is legally and on paper documented. The diverse community that it's in is surrounded by, on the north and the east side, Farragut houses. There are several different houses of faith and worship in the area as well. The Church of the Open Door is right on the corner off of Gold Street. The park itself was named for the Trinitarian Sisters of a historic church that was in the neighborhood. There are several schools and boys and girls clubs and cultural organizations in the area. This is a neighborhood where 27% of the residents live below the poverty line, and that this neighborhood has a higher percentage of Black residents than the city average. And this vibrant community would be well served by a 6-acre park. However, it is not currently being presented to the public as it was originally designed as a full 6-acre park. The original plan for Trinity Park was a beautiful grand entrance to the Manhattan Bridge. It was designed to be welcoming. You can see there's art and arches at the entrance to the bridge, inviting people to take a seat and enjoy this piece of architecture. However, when the BQE was constructed, this entire park was segmented as we see it today. So today, although the footprint is 6 acres, only 0.68 acres of this park are publicly accessible. And it is instead segmented by several different roadways, including and primarily the on and off ramps to the BQE. This is where the park intersects with a key transportation issue because these roadways run across and through the park. In addition to the roadways themselves running over the park, drivers have taken it upon themselves to create additional roadways crossing through the park. You can see here a dirt pathway that has been carved by cars driving, I believe, from Anchorage to Sand Street and back and forth. Not only does this disrupt the park and the landscape of the park, it is very dangerous to both pedestrians, cyclists, as well as vehicles using these surrounding roadways. When cars are entering and exiting at undesignated paths that are shrouded in greenery, it can be difficult for people to see where cars are coming from, and it creates hazardous conditions that are a public safety issue. Here is a deeper dive into what these pathways look like. As you can see, the cars have driven so much that there are very deep tracks in the park. It's clearly an issue that's been going on for a while. And the cars leave behind not just tracks, but also trash. You can see here bags and bags of trash. We've seen a treadmill there. We've seen washing machines and microwaves. Because cars are able to drive onto this park, some people have realized that you can dump trash that you don't want here as well, creating a hazardous condition in the park. When the cars drive onto the park, they also park their vehicles. As you can see, there are several cars, on average about 30 to 30 per day. Some are left overnight, but no matter how long they're left there, they do get on and off the park by accessing the roadways and sidewalks around the park, creating dangerous conditions. Here they are lined up perpendicular to the Manhattan Bridge. And as you can see, they would be driving on and off from this entrance point as well. And they're also parking along the roadways. Betty will get into more detail about where exactly this roadway is, but it surrounds the park. And because the roadways are redundant and not needed to be driven upon, cars are using this as parking as well. And I will pass it off to Betty to get into more information.
Hi, I'm Betty Rexroad with Bridges for People. We're going to start with looking at what the DOT established as the Vision Zero corridor along Nassau Street in 2019. And thank you to all of you on Community Board 2 who supported this. And this was in response to the project area and the safety data. You can see here, this corridor is the southern border of Trinity Park, close proximity to Manhattan Bridge. It was a very high crash corridor. It has since lowered the number of crashes. It's an area that is adjacent to the Farragut houses, has numerous schools, churches, colleges, Aruna, you want to go to the next one? And through this project, what was established was creating a pedestrian zone along Nassau Street so that people could safely cross Gold Street. And Gold Street is one of the areas that there are still crashes and incidents. Also at Dulfield Street. But creating this pedestrian zone, it made safe access where the sidewalk was as narrow as 2 feet, so that there was pedestrian access from Gold to Bridge Street along the currently 0.68 acres of Trinity Park that's accessible to the public. And you can see at the left side of the screen, towards number 3, is where there's the access ramp from the Manhattan to the Manhattan Bridge. Next, please. Just to familiarize you, I know Nicole has monitored the crash data for you each month. This looks at the crash data from 2018 to 2022 and shows in this area that there are incidents at Gold and Nassau, as well as fewer number at Duffield Street along Nassau, right next to the southern side of Trinity Park. Unfortunately, this pedestrian zone that was created and supported by everybody is another location where vehicles are choosing to park. Not only does this parking become confusing for pedestrians, but it's another location where this illegal parking creates further hazards for both motorists, cyclists, and pedestrians. This past August, as Diane mentioned, we worked with the Parks Department and community members to provide a cleanup of Trinity Park. Joining together, we picked up over 30 bags of trash. And in spending time in the park, looked at what the park has to offer all of us as 6 acres of New York parkland to the public if safe access was and could be provided. Initial steps and how this can happen quite easily. Number 1, and Rooney, if you have a cursor, if you can show. So number 1, along the north side of the park, which is the access ramp from Sands Avenue, closing this, the roadway that's made through the park to prevent cars from entering the New York City park. Next, please. Along the south side, which is along the Nassau Street side, right along the approach to the Manhattan Bridge, closing that area where cars and where vehicles enter the bridge or enter the park for parking. Next. Coming off the bridge where thousands of cyclists cross each day, there is an entrance to the park that you can see in the 3rd slide on the bottom to the right, where a chain link fence has been erected, behind which are stainless steel bollards to prevent, and the bollards there for emergency access, but with the understanding that there is access to the park where there currently is not. Number 3, right now from the exit ramp from the BQE, there are 2 redundant ramps. And you can see in the sign below that it states that the one to the left is to be used for different times for an HOV lane. There's not an HOV lane on the BQE, nor is there one on the bridge. Our recommendation is that the inner lane of this ramp be closed because it is because it allows for high-speed motorists as they come off the BQE and onto the bridge. And rather that be restored and returned to Trinity Park, and that the second access ramp be used for motorists where they would stop at a stop sign before turning right onto the Manhattan Bridge.
Can you stop there for 1 second? So, because can you make that? I see the sign, some that says left and right. So which that's the lower, the picture in the lower left-hand corner. Which lane are you asking to close?
We are asking to close the one that shows number 3, where the circles are shown. Aruna, can you put your cursor over top of those?
No. Can we do it? You see the little picture? There's a little. You have a little picture that. Yeah, that one.
Yeah.
Which one? What are you asking to close? I just want to.
We are asking that you would close the right and open the left. Beautiful. That does it. Thank you, sir.
Well, that wasn't me. That was Taya, but that's okay.
Thank you, Taya.
Okay, go ahead. Go ahead. I just want to make it clear.
No, I understand it. Thank you. Thank you, Sid. Aruna, can you go to number 4? And number 4, that the pedestrian zone that was made along Nassau Street stops approximately a quarter block from the entrance to Trinity Park. So we would ask that this pedestrian zone be extended so that you have the ability for pedestrians to safely access Trinity Park, and that this would be reinforced by the existing stop sign, which you see in the photo on the lower right, and whether that requires, in addition to that, additional stop signs or speed bumps or traffic light to notify motorists that they need to be aware of pedestrians and crossings. Next. And number 5, in doing so, this connects the fragmented areas of Trinity Park, which are not currently safely accessible to the public, and unifies it with the 0.68 acre gated park with additional 4 acres along the Nassau Street pedestrian zone that was created in 2019 through DOT Vision Zero. In doing all of this, Trinity Park has the ability to give back to New Yorkers 4 acres of New York City parkland, to create spaces for those crossing from the bridge, residents in the neighborhood, or people getting together from opposite boroughs. Provide pedestrian pathways that link together the NYCHA houses, downtown Brooklyn, the Navy Yards, and Dumbo. Improve and expand the potential of the Manhattan Bridge, both pedestrians and cyclists, and provide for New Yorkers an open sky and city views that is not frequently experienced in New York. And finally, to be the gateway to Brooklyn and Community Board 2. Our ask this evening is that we request that Community Board 2 pass a resolution recommending to the New York City DOT, in coordination with the New York City Parks Department, that barricades or Jersey barriers be erected on Sand Street and Anchorage Street to prevent illegal vehicular access and parking in Trinity Park. Also, that the DOT conduct an analysis to begin closing redundant roadways exiting the BQE to enable safe pedestrian access to Trinity Park. And in summary, helping to create safer streets and safe access to more parkland in Community Board 2. Thank you.
I'm going to open it up to questions from the community, from the Transportation Committee meeting first. I see. I'm gonna. So John Quinn. Go ahead, John. You have to unmute yourself.
Yeah, I did. Thank you, Sid. Now, I don't know which of you to ask, so whoever wants to answer of the three of you, thank you very much. I live in Concord Village, so not the closest person, I think, on the committee who, not the member of the committee who's closest to that, but pretty close. And I drive over there on occasion. Now, when you, I don't know if any of you were part of the people who did the cleanup, thank you, or took those pictures, but has anybody surveyed the pictures of the cars which are in the pictures to determine how many have placards or identifications like by union cards or anything that are city employees? Have you done any of that?
I can tell you, we were all part of the cleanup. We also took the photos that were attached to the presentation this evening. As we were doing the cleanup, we also witnessed people who drove into the park, changed their clothes, and left via another exit. When you look at cars, nobody has any signs of NYPD, FDNY. None of the cars are marked in terms of what reason they are there. We had people tell us they're construction workers in the neighborhood. I mean, there are cars literally parked all over this area of the city. And unfortunately, it seems to be, if you don't want to pay for parking and you don't want to pay for street cleaning, it's an easy place to put your vehicle.
Because I see out my window on the other side of the bridge, the exit ramp from the upper level that's marked BQE, which actually takes the traffic down to Sand Street, and there to J Street to go around to Sands to get onto the BQE. And I see in there's some park area there. I don't know if it's officially Parks Department area that's filled with cars. And further down, away from the entrance to the bridge, but at Tillery, and where the firehouse and central booking and the police station are, there is parking all over the ramp. The exit ramp from the westbound BQE that comes down to Tillery is filled with parking. And I believe that most of that is placard parking. And so the question becomes, are you prepared as transit, alternatives prepared to take on the police and the fire and other emergency people who believe they're entitled to parking and who park there? That's a real concern, because not that we support them getting that, but we've found when we've had this discussion about trying to prevent placard parking or any illegal parking, that people who are highly motivated will get around any bollards or any fences that you might put up. So
I was going to say the first thing is, yes, if they need to be taken on, that's part of the process. But it is illegal to park in New York City parks. And this is a New York City park.
I agree with you, but usually the people who are enforcing those are the same people who are doing that illegal parking. That becomes the problem. But okay, I just want to now, and you talked about.
John, I want to go on to.
Okay, yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Juliet.
Thanks, Sid. I just wanted to remind folks with regard to your the second part of your request about having DOT study the redundant entrances to the Manhattan Bridge, that they did study that in their 2019 Vision Zero proposal, in which they improved NASA and the pedestrian access to Trinity Park. And they decided through that analysis to close the access lane that you're proposing be opened, and only open the one that is the direct loop onto the park. So I'm not sure if you were present for the community board presentation in January 2019 for that, but I don't know that that is an appropriate ask of DOT to revisit something that they just looked at 3 years ago, and I don't know that they will do that. But I do support preventing a lot of that illegal parking in the park and on the painted pedestrian way.
And I think in asking them to do it, I think it's the ask is more for them to create a safe pathway to the park. Not necessarily for them to rethink the access ways, but for them to look at safe access.
Might be a better ask.
And they may, you know, I don't know when they made that decision, what they were weighing against that, but if they're asked for safe access, they have the same response and support what they decided in 2019, or they may decide that that was not considered previously and they need to change this too. It doesn't seem like any physical change has happened other than people park in the one that's not currently being used.
Okay, Sandy. You're gonna mute, Sandy. We can't hear you when you're muted.
I got it. Okay, here I am. So it's good that you're doing this. We've been fighting permit parking and other issues forever. I'm on Atlantic Avenue, but my question, well, first of all, these cars, they're likely personal cars that people are using to commute. So if they're city workers, police, or whatever, or even construction workers, they're not going to put their permits in because nobody's enforcing anything. But they're not supposed to use them in that way anyway. So, but you may not see them because they don't have to, and nobody's enforcing it. What are the, maybe you said this and I missed it, the Parks Department, what efforts are they making? Because it was pointed out that this is parkland. Are you working with the Parks Department, and what have they done if you're working with them?
They were part of our cleanup. You know, I think some of this is it's sort of the chicken and an egg that you know, Parks Department is strapped for money, and if the DOT allows people to park in the parks, and people aren't using them, then that park doesn't receive subsidies for care of the park. So our ask is that if we remove vehicles and make the park safe for public access, that the Parks Department will support this, and that funding to maintain the park can be obtained.
So they're not obligated to make sure cars don't drive or dump or do what's going, any of the stuff that's going on. They're not obligated to make it safe for park users.
Yeah, the Sandy, the parks are, but until there's a complaint, it's like anything else. They don't enforce it. I mean, the parks have the parks police that they can send out to ticket people, but if it's from the 8-4 precinct or from the fire department, from the super pumpers that are there, you know, there's a matter of professional courtesy, and they don't want to get shot either. So I mean, you know, so that's everything. The answer is that this has become sort of the habit. It's become habitual for them. That no one, you know, they weren't enforcing it. People parked, then other people saw it, so they wound up doing this. So it's something that frankly, look, I'm going to make a comment on it. We have a terrible problem with permit parkers parking illegally throughout downtown Brooklyn. The fact that there are no permits, all right, and with construction workers, they throw a construction vest in front, and then that becomes their permit. And these are what are called self-enforcement zones. This is within the 8-4s area self-enforcement zone, and you can be sure that, with all due respect, that a significant number of the people parked there from the 8-4 who don't have enough parking, and a significant number of the people parked there from the fire department as well, and that when whatever we pass and when the enforcement comes up, it's going to be an issue. So I'll come back to that later. I'm going to call on the other people. Sandy, do you have a further question, or I'm going to turn it over to Brian?
No, I'm good.
Okay, Brian, go ahead.
Yeah, I think we're getting a little off track talking about placard abuse. This is really about access to park. Would it be possible, Taya, just to share my screen for about 30 seconds?
Taya, can you allow Brian to share his screen?
Thank you. This is the NYC Do It map. This is from 1996. There's not a lot of people placard parking on those ramps back in 96, but as you can see, before they installed the bicycle entrance in the early 2000s, people simply drove from the on-ramp down here to Bridge Street. So this really isn't about whether or not people are, you know, using this for parking. It's before they used it to park, they used it to, you know, illegally drive through as a shortcut. This is really about restoring access for people to use the park, to walk. Sorry, I'm trying to stop sharing there. And that's why I think a key element of this proposal was to install barricades so that people can't do that. I'm not really sure exactly why we're continuing to talk about placard abuse.
Oh, well, I think at least personally, I agree with you. We want to get the park back. We want to get back to a park.
I wanted to interject. We had asked Councilmember Ressler to join us tonight. He's been a longtime supporter of this initiative and came to our cleanup in July. He wasn't able to attend, but he did send us a letter of support, and I'd love to read that right now. He wrote, "I write in support of the Bridges for People campaign to improve Trinity Park. Trinity Park is a vastly underutilized public park in downtown Brooklyn, where much of the mapped parkland is used for vehicle parking. It is essential that we reclaim part of this park by safely expanding pedestrian access and preventing further illegal vehicle storage within the park. I applaud the Bridges for People campaign's hard work on this proposal and suggestions to increase park access in an area that is in dire need of more. Thank you, Council Member Lincoln Ressler."
Patrick Kalaki, and then I'll go back to you, John. Patrick, you need to unmute yourself. And then Cheryl, excuse me.
Hi, sorry, I was, Taya told me I should speak up. I'll just repeat what I said in the comments or the chat. This is a wonderful idea. It's a creative idea, a lot of work, obviously. I love it. We should not hold it hostage to the placard problem. I mean, we know it's illegal, right? Yeah, you know, no one has to be convinced of that. And hopefully, some more ownership and care and love from this wonderful plan could be the best antidote for that, anyway. So, thank you so much,
Cheryl.
Yeah, I do have to agree with Brian and with Patrick. It's a waste of time talking about placards. The main thing is to bring it back to being a park. put concrete blocks, whatever, and stop people from going into the park. It is not parking. I don't care if you're FDNY, if you're a cop, whoever you are, there should be no parking in the park. So let's not talk about placards or who has placards or what. Let's just talk about, are we going to give them the letter supporting them to say, let's create a park where it was always a park, or are we going to talk about parking?
Would you like to make a motion to support them?
I would like to make a motion to support it.
Is there
Second. Second.
Okay, both Nicole and John, you have your hands up. So if you want to make a comment, I don't want to. I guess we're discussing the motion now. So
should I wait?
No, you can make it now. We can see.
Yeah, my hand was up to second, but I also want to speak once more. But Nicole,
yeah, I understand. Nicole,
just real quick. Sorry if I missed it. There was a segment of the presentation that said that one of the requests was to restore pedestrian access somewhere. Was there an area where access was blocked off from a different program, or is it blocked off because of like the parking or something else?
No, it's simply it's not safe for people to simply access the park, and it's also not very attractive when you cross an exit ramp for an approach to a bridge to be in a space that's filled with 30 cars.
Got it. Just a note, the word restore made me think that it was taken away, like officially.
Oh, no,
so
I was going to say no, and I guess we think of it as an act to restore.
I understand. Thank you.
John, go ahead.
Yeah, I want to talk about two things. One, I think it's a great idea. I certainly agree that barricades, bollards should be put up to protect the area that's sort of surrounded by the BQE exit ramp. But I don't think that crossing that ramp, the eastbound BQE ramp from onto the bridge can work. I understand that if you had only the traffic, if all traffic had to come to on the left side, left exit ramp or left entrance ramp to the Manhattan Bridge from that split, you're going to get, you're forcing people to cross where there's no light, where there's no traffic control. And at the times when the bridge is not backing up, cars will go fast because they'll go along the part of the ramp that's adjacent to the park before they get to the stop sign that you want to put up on the left side of the split. And that's just going to slow down traffic, and that's going to be more pollution going into the park. I think that forcing everybody onto the upper level, as opposed to giving them the choice by going left to go on the upper or lower level, just doesn't make any sense. But I want to ask a very practical question, and this is a question that deals with this park and any other park that abuts a city street. Who's going to pay for the bollards? Is it a park, since the bollards are going to be on park land? Is it going to have to be the Parks Department who is going to have to invest the money to install the bollards? Or is it going to be on the curb or on that part that is DOT property? What do you understand to be the whose obligation
I have a simple comment about that. If it gets approved, all right, and I would hope that it would, the council will wind up figuring out who's going to pay for it. And I don't think you have to worry about that now. Okay? And I did make one mistake. I made one mistake. I didn't open it up for questions from the community before I took the motion. So I'm going to go back and if there are any questions from people who are not on the community board, and I see one, and I will come back, John, I will come back to you before we finish the discussion. But I want to give the community a chance to weigh in if they have not already done so. I know Thomas Pulse has had his hand up. And if you want to say, you have 2 minutes to make a comment if you want to.
Mr. Meyer, Thomas is a full board member.
Oh, okay. So Thomas, since you have you want to make a comment because you had your hand up? Thomas?
Hi, yeah, I was actually going to ask for a point of clarification. Was the motion made to support the two bullet points from the last slide of the presentation, or is it just a general motion of support for the group?
No, I think it was I took it down as a motion to support the 2 points. So that's what's on the table.
Got it. Thank you.
John, go ahead.
Yes. Do we have a count of the number of cars by hour that travel through the park? Was my first question. And my second was just a comment. If we remove the placard parking from the park, where do they go to?
Well,
that's it.
Hopefully they'll take public transit.
Yeah, that's, if they're police and fire, don't believe that that's going to happen. All right. Aldana had a question. Who's an on-board person? Please go ahead, Aldana.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Thank you for allowing me to speak. I'm part of the BQE visioning board, and I'm just wondering, since the BQE is going to be fixing or repairing the cantilever from Atlantic to Sands, have you spoken with them regarding this and how would it affect this park while they're doing that construction?
We have spoken to them. There are also members of Bridges for People and TA that are working on the BQE initiative. I think in terms of the BQE, yes, there'll be work done on the BQE in the next 10 to 15 years. But how it interfaces with the park and what we're asking for is we are not asking for public funding to redesign the park. We're asking for public access to the park.
And I'll answer it. I'll answer something else. By state law, they may not take any part of that park without a separate act of the state legislature. So that they should be able to deal with the issue separately. There may be an issue that they may need to use it at some point to stage what they're going to do. But if it's a park, they're not supposed to do that without significant input and significant changes. So, you know, if it's a mapped park, and I believe this is a mapped park,
yes.
I don't think it's it should not be an issue, but it's always a potential issue. All right. Does anybody other public? I'm going to come back to members of the committee and board members. We have, yes. Okay, I have a couple. Could you use the raise your hand function? It's easier for me. I see.
Mr. Meyer, Bill Vinicombe has a hand up.
I see that, and also I see Ramona. Okay, so Bill, why don't you go ahead?
Well, thank you very much, and this is very exciting for the neighborhood surrounding the park. A lot of people don't realize that this was parkland because there is a little Trinity Park that's at the end of Duffield Street that's been there, for many years, and it's a nice little place where we have block parties and yearly and do things there. But a lot of people didn't never realize that this was parkland. That path that was shown recently that was carved in that grass by tow trucks that was sitting there waiting to be called to go onto the BQE. So that was basically tow trucks that made that path. The other thing is that the illegal parking there, it's fairly new, and it started out with 1, 2, 3. Like every day, it just got more and more and more. And so I wholly support this. This is a very good area for people to sit. It's right next to Bridge Plaza neighborhood, also next to Farragut Housing. And if you know the area, you all do. We can use some more green and trees and a lot of air in that area, right? A lot of the parks around the Farragut Housing houses have nothing but tar on them. They just, and the schools use them. So this is a wonderful place to get away. The main thing is to keep the cars off it. And honestly, the cars, it's gotten to the point where anybody could park there. I mean, you could put a yellow vest in the window and you can park there.
Right.
It's not even placards. I mean, I could park there and get away.
No, I'm aware. Unfortunately, what happens, it's become habitual. I understand.
Yeah, no, it's kind of thing that if nobody says anything the first day,
right, it becomes a habit.
Yeah, but I really appreciate your help on this, and it's a wonderful thing that we're just adding to it, and I really applaud all the work on this because it's something that it's just an eyesore, and it looks like it's just chaos there. So I really appreciate all your help, and thank you.
Ramona, you have to unmute yourself. No, you don't want to talk, or do you want to talk? Okay, Catherine Willis.
Hi, thank you so much. It's really, heartening to hear a lot of supportive comments from the board. I took part in the cleanup this past summer, and I will say, for anyone who hasn't been inside of the area of Trinity Park that we're talking about, I just kind of wanted to build off of what William was just saying, which is that it's surprisingly, like our best parks. It's very calm. Like there's so many trees and things that you wouldn't even know that you're surrounded by, vehicles that are going on and off of bridges and cantilevers and that kind of thing. So just wanted to applaud these recommendations, and thank you all for your support.
You're welcome. Juliet, I think you, John, do you want to go again, or you're okay? Juliet, go ahead.
I just typed in what I suggested into the chat. So you can look at that. That's for the motion.
Okay, for the motion, I want to add something. I want them to go out and force to get the cars off, but I also want to give the cars 72 hours of written notice before they start enforcement. Okay, that someone's going to have to. I'd like to put that in the motion that we want them to enforce the rules about no parking in the parks and everything else. But because it's become a habit, all right, that I want them to put up at least 72 hours of written notice before they start doing the enforcement.
Well, Sid, I mean, speaking to the minutes are the two proposals were simply to put up bollards on Sands and Anchorage and to close the redundant ramp access point to the putting it up.
Yeah, but they're going to have to tow the car. They're going to have to tow the cars first, okay, or leave something open for them to get out.
Well, but they're going to, the bollards aren't going to go up in 72 hours. They're going to take weeks to put them up. People will see what's going on.
I would like that, because I don't want Taya getting all the calls about what do you do in my car. So I would like them that we give that appropriate notice should be given. All right, she goes, I will anyway. The appropriate notice to the cars before enforcement action starts. Yep. And we should add that we want this enforced. I mean, I want this enforced. Okay.
Mr. Meyer?
Yes.
If I could just suggest that might be a too granular a level of detail to get into at this point, because the applicant is requesting simply an analysis, and it might be too soon to request that level of detail from the DOT.
Okay, all right. Let's move on. Anyone further want to say anything? I'm going to move the motion.
I have my hand.
Who is?
Brian Howell.
Okay, Brian, go ahead. You'll be the last.
I just wanted to bring our attention to what Juliet wrote in the chat. I do think that this would benefit from maybe a rewording, but I also think that perhaps the language that I think the language that Juliet wrote was good, but I'm not sure that it necessarily conveys what the I guess what the applicants are asking for, that a specific part of the park be opened up for use. So I was wondering if we could clarify exactly what we're asking.
And before we get that answer, as a secretary, can I ask the presenters what Parks did? Did they pass a resolution? Because I'd rather hear their resolution so that we don't have differing competing resolutions, so that there's no.
They did not. The Parks Committee deferred to this committee because it was the plan. The intention was always for both committees to receive a presentation because this impacts both of your topic.
So Parks took no action. Are they going?
That's correct. They did not take any action, and it does not go back to them.
So let's pass hours. Let's figure out what we want to do, and I believe we have a motion, which is the 1 and 2 that are here, unless we want to modify them.
That was Cheryl's motion. So she made a motion to support both points.
Okay, and I'm going to ask and Juliet, what is it? What did you propose? Anything different to modify that?
Yes, I proposed language that modifies the applicant's language. I don't know if they're okay with it or if they saw the chat.
Can you read it? Read it out loud, please.
Sure. So instead of number 1, erect barricades to prevent illegal parking in and around Trinity Park. Just simply, you don't have to say where. There's actually more places than what you've outlined that they should be looking at. And
I think that's correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. And then number 2, because your intent, I think, is to create and improve pedestrian access, I wouldn't necessarily say it's about this analysis of closing roadways, because that doesn't convey your intent. You know, your intent is, hey, we want pedestrians to use all parts of the park and be able to walk safely from one side of the park to the other side of the park. So I wrote, and Brian suggested a modification, create and improve pedestrian access to and connection within the park.
I think that's pretty well.
And Cheryl, do you accept the amendment?
Yes, I do.
Okay, so the motion's amended.
Got it.
May I just ask another question there?
Sure, go ahead, Brian.
Will Parks understand that we are speaking specifically about the area of the park that we're asking to connect? Like if we say, hey, we want you to improve pedestrian access, for the parts of Trinity Park, I'm not sure that they will necessarily understand that we're saying there's a part of the park that's not currently accessible, and we want you to make that accessible over there. I feel like the second part might be, we might need to add some more detail to for them to understand what we're asking for.
I think what we're proposing is that to make the entire 6 acres, is that what?
Well, I think they said only 4. There's still 2 acres. They said that the what's accessible now is 0.68 acres, which is less, 2/3 of an acre. And they said that the area that's contiguous to that doesn't cross any streets is another 4 acres. So we're basically not talking about the 6, but only about 4.68 or something like that. Is that correct?
There are some slivers on different parts of the BQE. Ideally, all of it is returned to the public. But some of those slivers are not contiguous. And I guess that the one thing that would be appreciated in your recommendations is to the Parks Department and to the DOT is asking them to work together to achieve this.
Okay, so why don't we add a third one that we ask the DOT and park departments to work together to accomplish the above, including making changes to the roadway to make the park more accessible. Is that what you had in mind?
Well, I think that's already in number 2, which was improve pedestrian access to and through the park. That's more general than, that sounds like a repeat of 2.
Well, but DOT and park, and does it say DOT and parks?
Well, no, I think the introduction would be to that we want DOT and parks to accomplish both of the following: 1, barricades, and 2, improve access.
So if Cheryl accepts that opening amendment.
Yeah, Yeah, that is the best way to go.
All right.
Instead of making parks and DOT work together as number 3, make it the opening statement. And this is what we want these 2 departments to work together to accomplish.
Okay.
Got it.
Hearing no further discussion, all in favor, raise your hand. But in the chart, in the chat, in the reactions, raise your hand. And that includes me. I believe. Are there any people? Put your hands down. Any people opposed?
Please lower your hands. Please lower your hands first.
Lower your hand. Lower your hands. Any people? Are there any members of the committee or the committee opposed? Are there any members of the committee who abstain? Seeing none, passes unanimously.
Yeah, and everybody is here, I should note.
And the entire committee is here.
Correct.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for the presentation.
Is that, before you go, is that presentation available somewhere?
We can make that available and send that. Can we send that through Taya so that it goes to each of you?
No, send it to Taya, and John will make it available through the minutes.
Okay, yeah, we're also. I was going to say we're also glad. I assume this then goes to the full board in February.
Correct. It goes to the executive. It will go to the executive committee next Monday, who will because we have to do an action. We have to do an action report on it, and then it will go to the full board.
I was just going to say, if there is any interest amongst the community board to full board to do a walkthrough of the park, or to so that we could walk them through this in situ rather than through diagrams.
No, the way this works through committee. There will not be a presentation before the full board. Okay. There will be an action report from the committee. All right. And not a full presentation. We don't. It becomes then the committee's obligation to present it to the full board. Now, if you want to be there, and I suggest that you be there, because they'll ask me questions which hopefully I will be able to answer. But if I don't, I'm going to ask you. So,
Mr. Meyer, if I could just offer a clarification, the applicants were wondering if they could offer, because this material is so dense, and the proposal does cover over 6 acres of land with several different points of discussion in different areas of the park. The applicants were wondering if they could offer an optional site visit to any interested board members. It would be optional because they will not be speaking before the board vote.
You should ask the board chair, the overall board chair, that question. That's a decision he makes, not me.
Yes, that's been discussed. I will follow up with the applicants.
Thank you. The next thing on the agenda is the chair report. So I have a few things to report on. As you know, DOT is not here at this meeting. DOT was invited. They felt that they weren't ready to present. They will be here in February. As you know, the DOT sometimes gets busy, and we have raised the issue with them over and over again about them attending our committee meetings, because we have lots of questions for them, and a lot of stuff is going on downtown Brooklyn, as it always has been. And they have declined they have declined to be present at every meeting. They point out that they have a large number of other community boards that they're responsible for. They feel they're always available to us to ask questions. They had a 50-minute discussion with Taya last week, I believe, where they went over all the questions that we had presented to them and gave Taya answers. I'll be honest with you. I wasn't happy with some of the answers. I think the answers were incomplete, not accurate, and I was not present on that conversation either. The example I will give is the simple one about weight and motion. Weight and motion is not yet been implemented. They're having technical problems. Exactly what those are, I don't know. They expect it to be put up shortly. But when I asked the question about what the fine is, well, the weight and motion law limits the fine to no more than $650. That's what the law says. And I'm very concerned about the fact that they will, as I said, they'll be here in February. Hopefully they'll have better, more complete answers. But as you know, we are also monitoring and attending. I strongly continue to recommend to every board member, committee member, and the general public that they attend all the BQE visioning meetings. I believe that they're getting very close to making recommendations. I believe that it's important that our community voices be heard, and the best way to continue to do that is to show up at the visioning meetings and to be heard. I've attended all the ones online. I have not attended the ones in person. I probably will continue to do that, whether I show up at the actual live ones. I'm not sure what I'm going to do. So again, DOT, we've committed to invite them. They are responsive when we ask them questions, but they have declined to show up except when they have agenda items that they want to discuss. The Atlantic Avenue redesign meeting was held by DDC this week as well. That is for the section that's contiguous to our area and covers our area as well, but it's in Crystal Hudson's area. There were people wanting to open up the Atlantic Avenue to a bike lane, to have a bus lane set aside, and to make it narrower. As we discuss, we have continuing problems with trucks using the routes off the BQE because of the BQE issues, and I have concerns about that as well. So I will continue to attend those. We will notify you of those as well, and those of you who have interest, everything else. I've requested, the DOT has issued guidelines about commentary on open streets, where the community board will have 30 days from when they announce a open street to comment. I have commented back that and asked that if they're going to do a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week open street, that and if it's more than one block, that they allow us more time so we can hold a public hearing, if that's going to be within our community board. I'm not sure how many of those there will actually be. As you know, we only have one Willoughby that is 24/7, and that is an issue that we will continue to monitor with them as well. We have a request for DOT and the sponsor of the one in Dumbo to meet with them because of continuing problems on that as well. I may be asking for one on Willoughby because there's an issue with them. The DOT has agreed to end that at one block earlier, and the signs and the block continue to be left for 24/7. And we'll have a spot. We will ask DOT to meet with us and the sponsor to discuss that as well. There are discussions that people may be aware of that over the next few years, the city has requested that 10,000 parking spaces be made available for electric charging stations. Whether that will be on the street or in parking lots is unclear, but obviously the city right now, when they put those in, removes those from parking space, those parking spaces from use. As you know, there are also new truck loading areas that the city is implementing throughout the area. Also, we're working on the bus redesign, which at this point seems to allow for the return of many bus stops to parking. And I've asked the DOT, this is a personal ask, not an issue as chair, that they consider if they're going to make new truck loading areas, that the bus stops that they return be considered to be used as truck loading areas, because people are already used to not parking in those spots, and that they would then open them up at night for parking as well. So there's a lot going on. That's a lot of report. All right. If anybody has questions, please feel free to ask or to put it in the chat or to email me directly, and I will respond. Thank you. Other committee business? John, do you want to add something?
This is John.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sid, in terms of, again, and I asked this question earlier, is there a count on the cars that go through Trinity Park by the hour? And what do we expect is going to happen with those government employees that are currently parking there that will no longer be permitted to park in the park?
Well, I was going to have when DOT
community board, we have to ask that question. They're not going to take on transportation. That's
John. You need to turn off your when you're speaking, and you need to turn off your camera because we can't hear you. Dad, repeat what you were going to say.
I said, because we are a community board, we have to immediately assess what will happen when you reduce, in this instance, an illegal service, and you don't permit the folk that are using it today to use it. At some point in the future, what happens? Where do those cars then proceed to go and park, which will probably be just as illegal as the Trinity Park parking is?
Okay. I will ask when DOT asks them what they should study, we'll ask them to study that as well.
And is there an hourly count on the cars that go through the park?
No.
Thank you.
Any other committee business? Community forum. I know. Yes.
Hi, it's Vicki Cameron. May I speak now?
Yes, please.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for giving me this time. Just a quick background. I'm an architect. I recently moved back to Brooklyn Heights. I now own a Concord Village, and I'm here. I'm also a community board member 1 in Manhattan, and from my experience of volunteering there, I've come to you tonight to ask for your help and maybe some input regarding the excessive siren noises around Concord Village, on Adams, Tillery, not to mention Atlantic Avenue as well. I have a friend who lives there. He's an older man, and he says he has to run to his bathroom sometimes in the day just to get reprieve. We are inundated here nonstop. I've reached out to the Brooklyn Borough President. I've also reached out to Councilman Ressler. Someone else reached out before me just a couple of weeks ago, and we have had a reprieve in the last couple of weeks, but we can see that it's rising from the sirens that literally go on, as I'm sure you all know, 24/7, whether there's traffic or not. If there is traffic, they wail. If there's no traffic, they wail. And we are meeting this weekend to form a Concord Village Committee to see if we can continue to ask the council member, because we can't ask the police. I've learned that the politicians make these rules. But I'm reaching out to you because we're desperate. You know, a lot of people work from home. There are a lot of elderly people. There's sick people. And as we know, I had included a terrific article from Gail Brewer, who says that, you know, piercing through the noise of the wails of sirens from
Please finish up.
Excuse me?
Please finish up. You had 2 or 3 minutes. Please finish up.
Oh, I've exceeded. Well, we don't have a clock. So anyway, what can you do for us? I'm going to refer you to Taya. I suggest you try to keep some form of log about what it is and what you hear, and whether it's a fire, police, or ambulance, to the extent that you can, and try to document what you're hearing. So I'm telling you, this goes on nonstop, and everything that you said.
Understand.
I can't say 1201, 1203, 1207.
Please talk to Taya, and we'll see what we can do for you.
Who is Taya?
Taya is from the community board. She'll give you her.
Okay, thank you. Does community board too here have quality of life as a committee?
Yes, we do. I don't know which committee it is, but my understanding as well is that Councilmember Ressler is working on this. We will work with you on this.
Thank you.
First.
Okay, thank you so much for your time.
Welcome, Lucy.
Yeah. Hi, good evening. I wanted to bring up the issue of the loading zones. There was a notice in December that some loading zones were going to be added to Community Board 2. And that notice went out in the middle of the holiday season when people are not paying attention. And of course, only a very small percentage of the residents in the area receive the notices from CB2 and actually read through them carefully. So if there are loading zones being suggested, a notice should go out to every resident on those blocks so they have an opportunity to comment, and not just some notice on the community board. Because my experience is
we have no way of doing that. None.
No, I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about from DOT.
Good. So do me a favor. Contact DOT. DOT contacts us. All right. If you want DOT, you have the Keith Bray's email. Contact him. I
sent him my comments, but you too could bring that up to DOT. And anyway, my opinion is that loading zones are totally unnecessary. First of all, DOT should have brought it to the community board.
Okay, Lucy, finish up.
Okay, it should have come to the community board. I've been here 45 years, and not having loading zones has never been a problem. And I think the community board should have been involved, and it should have come here. And it's very disrespectful not to have brought it to the community board, to this committee first.
Thank you, Lucy. Malachi?
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me?
We can. I apologize if I pronounced your name wrong.
It's Malachi.
Malachi, okay.
Okay, hello, everyone. I'm a small business owner, and I'm looking to open up in District 2. So I've been emailing, and I haven't gotten a response besides the auto reply that comes from the email that's on the website. So what email can I use to get in contact with somebody and directly?
Well, unfortunately, we only have one employee, and that may be the reason why you're having a hard time getting a response. All right. Taya, can you provide an email address, for Malachi?
Yes, I'm happy to send the same explanation again, Mr. Cottrell. We're not allowed to provide a platform for for-profit entities because we are the smallest unit, but we are a unit of city government.
So my company is a nonprofit. So that's why I need to get in contact with you guys to let you know about the business that I'm bringing to District 2. I have the BK email. I have I had that email and nothing. I've been reaching out, calling, and there's no I get nothing. And I have to speak to you guys.
Where do you try to set up the not-for-profit in a particular area?
In what area?
You know, within a specific area within CB2.
Yeah.
And what's the
Mr.
area?
Cottrell, I'm happy to review your materials again. That was not the impression I received from the website, but please resend it to the email I'll place in the chat.
Okay, let me check the chat so I could see if it's there. 1 second. This is my first time working this Zoom.
I'm going to go on to the next person, and if we need to come back to, we will.
Thank you so much.
I have his contact info. We've been in contact already.
Nicholas.
Ooh.
Hi, how's it going, everyone? Thank you. I'll be really quick. So I entered a few months back a request to the DOT for a stop sign on the corner of Concord and Duffield Street. All I wanted to know is I checked my status a few months ago, or a few weeks ago, I should say, and it's a very vague resolution. This is on the site request. I'm not sure if anyone's familiar with it. All it says is duplicate as the resolution.
Yes.
And I'm assuming, obviously, it seems self-explanatory, but when I check the map, there's no other service request for this. So I'm just wondering.
If you have a service number.
Yes, I do.
If you give that to Taya, she can follow up.
Okay, thank you.
With the same notification that she's the only employee of the board.
Okay, yeah, no rush. I will provide it in the chat. Thank you.
All right, Vincent.
Hey there. So I wanted to bring up something regarding the truck loading zones that has been mentioned a couple of times earlier. I live on Clinton Avenue between Myrtle and Willoughby, and I'm in a block of apartments that have thousands and thousands of people, enough that both UPS and FedEx are both double parked pretty much all day, every day on Clinton Avenue, forcing traffic to go into the opposite lane around them. And I think that it's just really important to raise awareness that we really need a loading zone for them, at least during the day, to make deliveries and get their work done without causing an unsafe kind of situation for everybody around us.
So it's the same information. If you provide that to what you do is you go on. I'll tell you. I'm going to do something which I don't normally do. The way this normally works is you send a request to the DOT. All right. Okay. And they have a website request where you can request this. All right. And they will send you up with an item number. They will get back to you eventually, telling you what they will do.
All right, interesting. I didn't know that was a
that's the way we sometimes get things done. We have to put it on their site as well.
All right, thank you, Taya, and thank you, Sid.
You're welcome, John. I'm not tell you, John. Go ahead. You have another thing to raise?
Yes, a couple of items. I want to go back to 2003 when we did the rezoning or upzoning of downtown Brooklyn. This committee, Transportation and Public Safety, made several community benefits as part of the rezoning, which we sort of expected would happen. I just want to mention them very quickly. First was an underground parking lot for the government agency vehicles. And the location under Duffield Park was determined to be an appropriate location. That did not happen. The second one was every subway station be made ADA compliant in conjunction with all of the buildings that are happening downtown Brooklyn. So far, we have 2 stations that were made compliant from the sidewalk to the mezzanine, and the MTA has yet to complete from the mezzanine down to the platform. And the third community benefit we asked for was a public bathroom. So I wanted to put that out there because a lot of what you discussed tonight, again, was on our agenda 20 years ago, and still nothing has happened. The BQE.
John, move on. You have the same 3-minute limitation.
The BQE cantilever has, it's got to have a project manager. That project manager should also be required to present or report or be prepared for questions at every community board 2 transportation committee meeting, because the cantilever is having all kinds of impacts throughout the district. That's it.
Thank you. Malachi, you want to come back on? Or are you done? You have to unmute yourself, Malachi. Malachi, you're still.
Yes. Can you hear me now?
Now I can hear you now.
Yes, my company is a not-for-profit organization, and part of our stipulations to get our certifications is to be in communication with Brooklyn District 2, your district, the district that we're moving to. And like I said, I've been emailing since June of 2022, and I've been getting the same message. So I just provided my email. And if you want I could give my personal telephone number. So, yeah.
I will follow up to make sure you're contacted.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that.
You're welcome. Any other community, any other for the community forum? Hearing none further, can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Seconded. Any objection? Thank you, everyone. I'll see
Good night, everyone.
I will see you in February. Hopefully, DOT will be here, and we will not have a traffic violence report.
Good night.
Bye.